Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. You are listening to African Father in America podcast.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. 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 Yes, no problem. We will just adjust accordingly, and we are going to go live without you for now. It's back. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Okay, okay. We'll wait for you to join then. And thank no problem, no problem. And thank you to all of you for joining us. I'll just play a bit of the the signature song for the African Father in America podcast that we are listening to while we wait for Naima to join us.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to make
What?
this happen. Thank you all for your patience. And Naima is back, and we are live again. We are live on YouTube, and we're also live on Clubhouse for the first time. My name is Simon Okelo, and I'm excited to be here with you to present to you the 61st episode of the African Father in America podcast. And today we are going to be talking about the cannabis future, the future of the cannabis industry. And when you think about even the word cannabis or marijuana in Kenya, it's called bangi, and it has very, very many names, just the same plant. And earlier on this year when I joined Clubhouse, I got exposed to a lot of conversations about cannabis and the herb, as the Rastaman calls it. And I even learned that in Revelation chapter 22, verse 1 to 22, it talks a lot about cannabis. In Genesis, there's a portion of that book that says every herb bearing plant is good for you. So there were so many arguments I was learning, and I wanted to find someone who has a bit of information about the future of the cannabis industry, especially because I know that it's not going away based on how many states in the US are legalizing it, and also based on how many countries globally are legalizing it. In fact, I used to go to a room on Clubhouse that was called Christianity and Cannabis. And one of
Mm,
the things I learned in that room was that Israel leads the world in medical marijuana research, and they believe that it's a sacred plant, that it's actually the sacred tree of life. So while I was learning about all of this, I was lucky that I connected with Naima Abdi, who is a
mm,
digital marketing strategist from Los Angeles, working in the cannabis industry since 2018. She specializes in email marketing, content planning, blogging, SEO, social media, copywriting, and I just wanted to meet with Naima and learn from her. Naima is also a writer, a poet, and an avid reader and a plant mom.
mhm.
Naima, I want you to actually share your story with us, like a moment when you were between 8 to 12 years old, when you realized that one day you'd be who you are today and you'd be impacting the world in the way that you're doing today?
Wow, that's a really good question. It's interesting. So I can actually remember like an adult asking me sort of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my answer was, I want to be myself. Like, I know it sounds like, and it sounds kind of weird, but I remember like not saying like, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a singer. Like, it was always like, I want to be famous for being me. And I can remember like responding the same way to a question of somebody saying like, if you could be any famous person, who would you be? And I was like, well, I wouldn't be no one. Like, I want to be myself. Like, I just want to be known for being me. And so I think, given my experiences in childhood, like especially around that time, it's super interesting because I can really remember feeling like a fish out of water and just not feeling as if like I belonged really anywhere. I remember in those years, I was sort of living and occupying a lot of spaces where nobody looked like me. And everything that I wasn't, nor could I ever be, was sort of exalted. So for me, being a Black girl with textured hair and a name that like no one could pronounce, and a body I felt super uncomfortable in, I felt like kind of a mistake. And so I think my experience growing up was really largely centered around trying to like attain an image and an identity that was like rooted in my own erasure, which I think a lot of people can relate to. But I spent a lot of time subsequently like looking for myself in places that I was never going to find myself, and subjecting myself, to all sorts of harm. And so in environments that just weren't suited for authenticity. And so knowingly and unknowingly sort of just erasing traces and suppressing traces of myself, my authenticity, Blackness and otherwise, and all the while sort of knowing that there was like a real me somewhere in there who was really aware and wanted to be accepted and wanted to be sort of received for who I actually was, which at the time and still am sort of an artistic person who liked to write poetry and watch cartoons and music videos and paint and craft things and watch the rain. And so I felt, because this person that I was inherently wasn't lovable or interesting or beautiful or worthy or to be seen, I spent those years sort of really searching for myself in places that I wasn't ever going to find myself, and repeating those patterns. But I really feel like those formative years and those moments of always wanting to be myself but struggling to figure out what that was like sort of led me to the foundation of my own life's purpose, which is to become sort of my optimal undefinable self, and to evolve into a person who knows himself and loves themselves and likes themselves and values their talents and prioritizes their healing and stretches their perspective to grow and knows that they know nothing, and sort of wants to be the person they are, and rather not the person that they think others think that they should be. And so I think my involvement with the cannabis industry is a huge part of that, because I feel like I've always wanted to take an unconventional pathway in life and do things that felt really transformative, that other people didn't necessarily have to understand, but that I could see the potential of it. And so I think for me, getting involved in something that has a stigma, but that is the complete opposite of what everyone thinks it is, has been sort of a rewarding thing. And it's afforded me the opportunity to really meet a lot of very interesting people who are really intelligent from all breadths of life, to get behind something that really does have the sincere opportunity to shift the way we heal and exist on this planet. And so that's my story.
I love it. I love it. You know, you spoke about, getting into the cannabis industry so that you could actually find yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that's so powerful. And it actually inspired me to share with you the first time I interacted with cannabis. Like, I have an older sister who is right. We are nine in our family. So my older sister who is right ahead of me is called Leah, and she had a boyfriend who was a peddler, like a weed peddler. And because our house and our household was respected, he would then come and hide it there because he knew that no police can come to our place and all of that. In Kenya, weed is illegal. You get 10 years for one split. So, so the work being done to transform the policies and to legalize it in the US are actually much needed in countries like Kenya. Um, but, I remember the first time that I actually went and even tried a joint was on Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve in my family, especially when I was still growing up in Kenya, there was a lot of cooking that night. You'd find pilau, you'd find chicken, you'd find mandazis, all sorts of delicious Kenyan foods. And so, in the midst of all this cooking, people are also traveling, going to church, going to visit with family. People are walking all night. There is always excitement on Christmas Eve. And so, in the course of that excitement, we were with friends and family. There was a neighbor's wife who was actually our age mate. She was young like us, and she was daring. So, we had a little, in our neighborhood, we also had illicit breweries. So we had a little beer, and then I got the courage to tell everybody that, hey, I actually know where Leah keeps the splits of marijuana. Would you guys like to try? Everybody was like, yeah. And none of these people, including an uncle of mine, had tried it before. So we all
Wow.
tried it, and people got like hungry. People wanted to eat. So, we would have not been discovered unless, but the way we behaved, made it so obvious. Everybody ran to my mother's kitchen where all the cooking was happening, and everybody just started eating without asking for permission, including our neighbor's wife. So my mom was asking, why are you all eating? And tomorrow is Christmas. You're finishing the food. So, so we were discovered and we got beat like crazy. Over there, if you do such a thing, you're in big trouble. Anyhow, so it's different in Seattle. It's different. You know, it's legal. You find cannabis stores everywhere, like coffee stores. But also, I'm learning the medicinal benefits of the cannabis plant. I'm learning the industrial benefits of the plant. So for me, coming into this conversation, I was thinking of the medicinal value, I was thinking of the recreational value, I was also thinking of the industrial value of it. And I wanted you to just speak to us, share with us, first of all, your first interaction with marijuana, just like I did, and then give us the three perspectives around the cannabis industry, where you think it's going.
Okay, great. So my first interaction with cannabis was, I think I was 17. So yeah, I was not like, I had a lot of friends who would smoke weed for years, and I remember like being in the car with them and hanging out with them, and they would like try to get me to smoke, and they'd be like, come on, Naima, like just take one hit with us, like blah blah, blah. And I'd be like, I'm not interested. Like I would just kind of like be the one that was just like hanging out while they would get high. And like this was like this for years, like since we were 14. Like a lot of my friends would smoke, and like it took me a long time to be like, okay, I finally want to try it. But I remember taking the SATs, getting my score back, applying to university, and getting into the college I wanted. And that's when I tried it. Like after I got into college, I was like, okay, fine, I'll try it. I remember the first time I tried it, I was with a friend. We were in the mall parking lot. She brought a joint. We smoked it. And I just remember like going in the mall. We like sat in the food court, and like maybe like 20 minutes later, just feeling like the most inescapable joy that turned into like hours of laughter. And I just remember like never feeling like that happy or just like laughing so hard in my life. And after that moment, I'm not kidding you, I don't want to say I've been smoking weed every day, but I've been utilizing cannabis consistently throughout the years, pretty much like since that moment. And it's improved the quality of my life in a number of ways. I had a lot of issues with like my hormones, and a lot of like like just feminine issues with like ovarian cyst and all of those sorts of things, and like regulation with my cycle. And cannabis has definitely helped alleviate that, but also just some of the pain that I was having when I actually was having a monthly. And then also like I had a lot of issues with anxiety and depression and just sort of like overthinking. And so for me, I'm naturally a person who's very like anxious on the inside, but has a very cool exterior on the outside. And so my work, I say my work with cannabis, my use of cannabis has definitely helped me to mitigate those stresses, and sort of regulate my own internal homeostasis in a lot of ways. And so that's my experience with cannabis. But I've taken breaks like here and there, throughout the years, but I've pretty much like since 17 just been down.
Me too, actually. Me too. And the thing is, it's not addictive. You can stop for as long as you want. Then you can start using it as the way that you see fit. I
Hmm.
do want to give a quick shout out to a few people that are joining us on YouTube. I see my wonderful sister Chiumba has joined us on YouTube. She's dropping comments and laughing at our conversation. But I also want to give a shout out to those who are joining us on Clubhouse. Thank you for staying patient with us. We are going to join you in 15 minutes for a Q&A segment with Naima Abdi. If you're just joining us now, we are having a wonderful conversation about the future of cannabis. And we've talked about Naima's story. We both shared our first interaction with marijuana. And now we want to talk about the cannabis industry in general. Where is it going? And really, when I was researching this topic, I also learned that this plant was used to harm and criminalize black and brown people here in America. So I want you to speak to that a bit as well.
Sure. Okay. So I think, and I spoke to it, that even the name marijuana is actually rooted in a form of racism because there were a lot of Mexican immigrants that were, working very low wage jobs, and they would smoke marijuana, and it was sort of a little bit of a stimulant for them. And so, in order to, I guess, stamp against and discriminate against them, in addition to sort of like the tobacco and alcohol industry also had incentives to ban like marijuana from being legal. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of conjecture and a lot of history around the policies rooted in racism, the policies rooted in sort of corruption, so to speak, and using it to criminalize and lock people up and incarcerate people, especially nonviolent offenders who, again, there are people who had one weed offense and it changed the entire course of their life. It entered them into the whole simulation of mass incarceration. And once they got in, some of them never got out. And so there's that aspect of it. But when we look at where it's going, and again, we kind of spoke to this a little bit before, now it's medicine, right? And why is it medicine? Well, it's always been medicine. But the issue here is that there are a lot of people who have stood to make a significant profit off of the commoditization of this plant medicine that used to be a Schedule One drug, and in some places does carry a very hefty fine or a sentence if you are caught with possessing whatever substance. And so if you're caught possessing cannabis. So I think essentially now we're seeing a shift of everything turning to medicine, because there's a lot of money to be made by a lot of different players in the game. There's a lot of different multi-state operators and farm and canna and all, like all of this like big industry sort of behind this, because they know what we've always known is that this is medicine. There's a lot of underdiscovered benefits and underdiscovered realities and uses for this medicine that they haven't even touched yet because it was illegal for so long. And so even in our own bodies, and a lot of people don't know this, we have what's called an endocannabinoid system. What that is it's a very complex system that they don't really understand how it works, but it is a network of various receptors that regulate different functions and processes in your body, including sleep, mood, appetite, and a number of other things. What it has is receptors that actually can receive cannabis and some of the cannabinoids in it, like THC or CBD or CBC or THCA or whatever. And then that allows you to feel and receive the effects of cannabis that you need most to regulate what's called homeostasis in the body. And so as we look towards the future of what cannabis is going to be, the future of all medicine and healthcare is personalized. We see that happening every day with healthcare sort of radically transforming and shifting in little ways. And a lot of these companies coming up and understanding that healthcare is really moving towards more of a collaborative approach. It's not really about this one size fits all medication or this one size fits all regimen. It's really going to be more about personalized things. And so as we look towards the future, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, we're going to start to see cannabis, I think, really being utilized in ways that tries to understand the different profiles of the cannabinoids and then taking those profiles in very sophisticated ways to create personalized medicines that are plant-based that will speak to a range of different conditions and, perhaps even some really life-altering or life-changing medicines or medications could really come of this. And so I think one of the things that I totally see, and I've seen this just since 2016, when Washington was the first state to go fully legal, I like to call it sort of the domino effect. After that, then California went legal, then Nevada, and then what you start to see is most places, and this is just the reality of the industry, is most states that have a medical program or have voted for medical, give it time, they'll be recreational, because it's literally like the sort of gateway effect where people like to say that like weed is a gateway drug. I like to say that medical marijuana legislation or legalization is the gateway to recreational adult use. It always happens. There's very few states, if any, that haven't had a medical program and didn't go recreational within 5 to 10 years. In California's case, it was a little bit different. Out here, they had a medical system for 25 years that was never regulated. And then once Washington started making insane tax revenues, they determined they were like starting to regulate things. So it's a little bit different. But I think that one of the things we're going to see is certainly is global legalization, especially in places even like Africa, where in the next 50 to 100 years, once attitudes start changing, and again, the continent is sort of in this really strange, shifty kind of a place where it's evolving and transforming and things are really bubbling up to the surface in a lot of ways. I feel like cannabis will be instrumental there. There's already places like South Africa that have changed their cannabis laws, and you can see that they're positioning themselves to sort of be one of, if not the first country in Africa to probably legalize cannabis fully and to even perhaps even institutionalize it in the way that it's been done here in America. And so once that happens in South Africa, it'll start happening just like the trickle effect. I like to call again that gateway effect, the domino effect. It always happens. And so I think even looking further, we can really start to see that like cannabis will just be institutionalized, infused in food and beverages and cosmetics and clothing and accessories and apparel, but even things like building materials, even perhaps things like eco-friendly plastics. And I think ultimately there will be a whole push to really, again, understand the full range and benefits of this plant. Because like I said, there's, right now, a known 100 or so active cannabinoids, probably even more than 100, and they still don't really understand fully what they all do and what the best combinations of those will be. And so again, as medicine moves to a more personalized sort of approach, whether that's through computational power or technology, whether that's classical computational power or quantum or some hybrid, because there's a lot of talk in science that, these types of technologies will feed personalized medicines. I think cannabis definitely has a place for it, and that we will be sort of utilizing it again as healthcare rather than demonizing and stigmatizing it.
Wow. We have about 10 minutes to transition to the Q&A on Clubhouse. So I want to ask you a few questions. But while I'm asking these questions, there's one question that I normally ask all the guests that join me here for the African Father in America podcast. The question is your perspectives on Black fathers. How are we doing? If you were to sit on a chair where you have a microphone that all Black fathers, especially the young ones, like myself, were listening to you, how would you talk to us and how would you advise us on how we can survive in this world? Think about that, but I want you to just give me one sentence answers to the following questions in regards to marijuana.
Okay.
The plant was handpicked by God.
Yes.
The endocannabinoid in your body means that we are made of the plant.
Yeah. Yes. I think it depends because some people's systems don't agree with cannabis, and so in that case, that plant medicine's not for them. But I would agree with that generally. Yes.
The plant is misunderstood because of white supremacy.
100%.
Deschedule and legalize.
Schedule and legalize? Deschedule and
Deschedule. Yeah.
yes, 100%.
Um, Now, talk to Black fathers worldwide. Tell them something. You have the microphone.
Black fathers worldwide, I think I'm in awe of you because I think Black fathers, in so many ways, have been in the fight of their life for a really long time. So when I think of the fact that there are dedicated Black fathers in the world who are putting in the energy to know themselves and understand the world that they live in and understand the responsibility that they have by raising and rearing children in this world where again there's a lot of places where it's a harmful place to be Black and just for simply existing. And so I think there's a lot of pressure and chaos in general just for all Black parents, but I think for Black fathers in general it's different because the quality of your parenting is always subjected to other people's projections, right? And so there's a number of projections or scrutiny, and it's ultimately, trying to cast a narrative that portrays a certain kind of collectivism thought about what a Black father is, which to me, most times that narrative is very disempowering. And so as I observe the state of the world, and Black fatherhood across the diaspora, I know how many derailing agents there are in this society that are formidable in sort of trying to sever your connection to family and your connection to us. But I want you to know that we need you and that we appreciate you and that we see you and that you're growing and that you're still doing the work. And so I think there's something inside of you that can connect to the lineage of fatherhood and of the ancestors before all of the forces that have tried to tear the Black family asunder have devised in the world. And so I think it's in you and you know that, and you just have to keep moving and growing, but that it's really important to sort of emphasize that you're appreciated and you're still here, and that you get to rewrite the narrative of what fatherhood means to you. And so I leave you with that.
Thank you. Thank you. They heard you. They heard you, and they saw you as well. How can people stay connected with you?
Okay, so people can stay connected with me via Instagram. I'm at Whole Growing Soul. That's WHOLEGROWINGSOUL. And I'm here on Clubhouse at Naima H. Abdi. And you can also find me on LinkedIn too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Naima, and for everyone who is joining us on YouTube and those who will listen to this episode 61 of the African Father in America podcast on all podcasting platforms. Today we were talking about the future of cannabis, and my wonderful, wonderful guest is the amazing Naima Abdi, who has been in the cannabis industry since 2018 as a digital marketing strategist. And it was just so wonderful to learn about her story. It was wonderful to learn about her first interaction with marijuana at the age of 17. And I think my first interaction was at around 13, you know. Anyhow, I shared my story as well, and then we talked about the future of cannabis, how this cannabis has also been used to harm black and brown people here in America, but also to harm African people in America. This is a We also learned that it's because of white supremacy that the cannabis plant is actually still criminalized worldwide, because it's, imagine in Kenya being jailed for 10 years for just having a spliff. The same problem is here in the US, where young people who are arrested because they were just having a spliff have been in jail for many years and their families have been destroyed completely. Those are some of the things I learned, and the idea and the hope is for this plant to be descheduled, descheduled so that it's just sold like tomatoes and oranges and other commodities, so that people can get the healing and the benefits that this plant uh, is meant to give people. So with that, we are going to go to Clubhouse, where we are going to have a brief Q&A. Please follow the African Father in America on all social media platforms. Here on YouTube, you can subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram as well. And let's just keep building and keep transforming this world and changing the narrative about Africa, one story at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. See you in Clubhouse. Thank you, Naima, for being here with me.
Bye.